The galaxy watched in silence as Earth burned. From the farthest stars, countless civilizations saw the blue planet fall into darkness. Once, humans had dreamed of peace and discovery. They built ships to touch the stars, believing the universe would welcome them. But the galaxy was not kind. It saw humanity not as explorers or allies, but as tools, workers, soldiers, and slaves. When the Galactic Union arrived, they came not with greetings, but with war. Their fleets surrounded Earth like a swarm of shadows. They destroyed Earth's defenses in days, cutting through every attempt to fight back. The skies turned red. The great cities, New York, London, Tokyo, burned under alien fire. Oceans boiled and the land cracked. Humanity had no chance. The Union called it pacification, but to the people of Earth it was the end. Billions were taken from their homes, forced into ships, and scattered across the galaxy to serve alien masters. Some were made miners on cold, dark worlds. Others were used in wars that were not their own. Humanity became a rumor, a warning. The story of a proud race that flew too close to the sun and was broken for its pride. But not all hope died. In the ruins of the old world, some survived. Hidden in bunkers, underground tunnels, and shattered colonies on Mars and Luna, a few humans lived on. They had no armies, no ships, no future, only a promise whispered from one generation to the next. We will return. The Galactic Union soon forgot about them. To the alien rulers, Earth became a wasteland, a dead rock with nothing left to fear. They moved on, focusing on their endless politics and wars. The memory of humanity faded into the background of galactic history, mentioned only in old records and stories told to scare children. Yet far beyond the known sectors, in the cold edge of uncharted space, something began to move. Deep within an asteroid field, hidden from all sensors, ancient machines came to life. A signal pulsed, faint, rhythmic, and familiar. It was a human code, one not heard for hundreds of years. A small listening station belonging to the Varaxian Empire picked it up by accident. The operators, bored and half asleep, stared in confusion as the signal repeated. It wasn't a random transmission. It was a message. A voice distorted by distance and time spoke in an old Terran language. The aliens tried to translate it, and when they did, the words froze them in place. Judgment is coming. At first, they laughed. A ghost signal, they said, a trick of cosmic radiation. But the laughter faded when the same signal appeared again, this time stronger, moving through relay networks that no one had used in centuries. The Galactic Union's Intelligence Council was alerted. They opened the old human archives and confirmed something impossible. The code belonged to Earth's last defense network, believed to have been destroyed during the final invasion. The Union sent scout ships to investigate the outer sectors. None returned. Communication blackouts spread like a slow infection across the galaxy's edge. Outposts stopped responding. Cargo ships vanished. The trade routes became silent. The Union tried to hide it, but fear was spreading fast. Something was moving in the dark. Something old, quiet, and very angry. On one remote world, a group of alien miners reported seeing strange ships. They were unlike anything known. Large, dark, and without transponders. They didn't answer hails. They just passed by, silent and cold. One witness swore he saw markings on their hulls. Old human letters glowing faintly. When asked what the letters said, the miner hesitated before replying. It said Terra. Across the galaxy, unease grew. The Union's leaders dismissed the rumors, but behind closed doors they were terrified. How could humanity return? Earth was gone. Their fleets were gone. Their people were scattered. It was impossible. And yet the signals kept coming. Each message was clearer than the last. Each one carried the same phrase. We remember what you did. In the slave colonies, whispers began to spread among the human workers. They spoke of a fleet, a dark armada rising from the shadows of space. They said humanity had not died. It had evolved. Hidden for centuries, the survivors had rebuilt. They had learned, adapted, and grown strong again. They had watched the galaxy from the dark and waited for the right time to strike back. Now that time had come. A single alien scientist studying the signals stared at his monitor for hours. The data showed an approaching object, large, fast, and unlike anything in the Union's records. As the signal grew stronger, the scientist realized it was not a meteor or a ship. It was many ships traveling in perfect formation. Then just before the feed cut off, his system displayed one final translation of the message. This is Earth. And then, Silence. The galaxy, once united in pride and power, suddenly remembered the one thing it had forgotten: the unbreakable will of humankind. Far away, in the cold darkness between stars, the human fleet activated its engines. The sound was like thunder across the void. Blue light filled the blackness as 1,000 warships moved together, their weapons glowing. On the command bridge of the lead ship, a captain stood and looked toward the distant stars where the Galactic Union waited. "Set course for home," she said quietly. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy trembled. Humanity was coming back. Far across the galaxy, on a cold and silent moon called Vexra 9, a small listening post floated in darkness. The post was old, forgotten by most, and run by only a handful of alien workers. It was meant to detect pirate signals and stray comets. Nothing ever happened there, until one night the machine started to blink. A weak sound echoed through the static, a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. The signal repeated again and again, growing stronger with each pass. The operator on duty, a young Vraxian named Lore, frowned and tapped the console. The signal didn't match any known pattern. It wasn't pirate chatter and it wasn't natural. It was deliberate. He called his supervisor, who listened carefully. The message was short and simple, written in an ancient code. The translator struggled for a few moments before showing the words on screen. "Judgment is coming." They stared at each other in silence. The last time anyone had seen that language was hundreds of years ago. Terran Standard, the language of Earth. The same Earth that had been wiped from the stars long ago. The supervisor laughed nervously. "It's a glitch," he said. "Some old broadcast bouncing through space. Forget it," but the signal didn't stop. It got louder, clearer, and more focused. Within hours, other listening posts across nearby systems started reporting the same message. Every version was identical, every pulse perfectly timed. Someone, somewhere, was sending it with purpose. Soon, the Galactic Union's Central Command heard about the anomaly. Their analysts ran the data, checked the frequencies, and verified the impossible. The message had originated from deep beyond charted space, far outside any known colonies, right where human escape ships were rumored to have vanished centuries ago. The news spread fast. The Council gathered in their shining towers on the capital world of Arian Prime. The chamber buzzed with tension as ambassadors from dozens of alien races debated what to do. Some said it was a trick from rebels. Others claimed it was a pirate attack or an AI ghost from old wars. But the few who had studied ancient human history said one thing quietly: "It's them." No one wanted to believe it. Humanity was supposed to be gone, erased, broken, and enslaved. The Union had made sure of it. They had destroyed Earth, burned its cities, and scattered its survivors to the far corners of the galaxy. Humans were workers now, servants, slaves. They were nothing to fear, and yet outposts began to vanish. At first it was small stations, remote colonies, mining worlds, and research bases at the edge of explored space. Then it was patrol fleets. Ships stopped responding, their last messages full of static and fear. Surveillance drones found only wreckage drifting in silence. No enemies, no distress beacons, and just destruction. Every ruin had one thing in common. Etched into metal, burned into walls, or glowing faintly on the ground was the same mark: a circle with a single line across it. The old human symbol for Earth. Panic spread through the outer sectors. The Union sent more fleets, larger this time, armed with the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. They searched the dark void but found nothing. No signals, no ships, only echoes. And the same message still whispering through space: "Judgment is coming." In the slave colonies, the whispers began to change. Among the human workers who labored in silence, a spark of hope lit once again. They recognized the signal instantly. It wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. One old miner named Joran sat by a fire in the tunnels of the Krell mines and told his people the truth. "They didn't die," he said softly. "Our ancestors. They escaped. They went beyond the edge, built something out there, and now they're coming back." No one wanted to believe him at first. Life had been nothing but pain and obedience for generations. But then one night, the sky above Krell turned red. The stars seemed to vanish for a moment, replaced by massive dark shapes moving through the void. No engines, no lights, just shadows. Then, one of the Overseer's ships exploded without warning or sound. The humans looked up and saw the mark again. glowing blue in the smoke. The aliens panicked. They didn't understand who could strike with such precision, such silence. But the humans did. They fell to their knees and whispered a single word: home. Back in the capital, fear turned into chaos. Every military report ended the same way. No survivors, no evidence, only the symbol. The Galactic Council tried to censor the news, but word spread too fast. Entire species began to evacuate border worlds. Admiral Corin of the Union fleet sat alone in his war chamber, staring at a hologram of Earth's ruins. "It can't be them," he muttered. But deep down, he knew the truth. The signal patterns, the tactics, the silence before every strike, all of it was human. The ghosts of Earth were returning. He opened a private message from the outer colonies. It contained a single video feed, a dark shape in the void, larger than any ship ever built by aliens. A human voice spoke through the static. "We remember what you did." The feed cut off. That night, as the stars burned quietly over Aryan Prime, the Admiral looked out his window and saw something new, a faint blue shimmer on the horizon. It wasn't natural. It was a hyperspace distortion, a fleet entering real space. The humans had returned. No speeches, no warnings, no mercy. Only silence. And somewhere far in the dark, a young alien operator who first heard the signal whispered to himself, trembling, "If that was humanity's voice, then the galaxy is already doomed." The signal played one last time across every star system, louder than before. Not a threat, but a sentence. "Judgment is here." The galaxy shivered. Humanity's vengeance had begun. The darkness of space shifted. On the edge of the galaxy, where light rarely touched, a ripple tore through the void. It wasn't a meteor or a passing storm. It was a doorway, and the kind humans once called a jump gate. From the rift, a single ship emerged. Then another. Then hundreds, massive, silent, black as night. Their armor reflected no light. Their engines burned blue like ghosts in motion. The fleet moved in perfect formation, each vessel marked by the same ancient symbol, the circle and line of Earth. The galaxy had forgotten that mark. But now it was back, glowing across the dark hulls like a declaration. Humanity had returned. The first system to see them was a quiet trade hub called Valar Prime. The aliens there were used to seeing all kinds of ships, traders, smugglers, and patrols, but nothing like this. The new arrivals didn't send greetings, didn't ask permission to dock. They came in complete silence. Station sensors screamed warnings. Unidentified vessels, no registration codes, weapons active. The local defense fleet scrambled to intercept, but before they could get close, their systems failed. Power died, communication went black, and every ship in orbit froze in space. The dark fleet moved past them without firing a shot. Only one broadcast came through. A voice, clear and calm, speaking in an ancient human tone. "Do not interfere. This is not your war." Moments later, the fleet vanished into hyperspace again, leaving behind nothing but confusion and fear. When news reached the Galactic Union, panic erupted. Entire governments demanded answers. The Council gathered once more, but their meetings were filled with shouting and fear. Who were these ships? What did they want? Admiral Corin knew. He had studied every trace, every sensor log, every pattern. The energy signatures were human. The technology was beyond anything the Union had. Quiet, efficient, terrifying. Humanity had not only survived, they had surpassed their former masters. He whispered to himself, they didn't die. They evolved. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of Aurelius IV, once one of the largest human slave colonies, the ground began to tremble. The night sky burned bright as shadows passed overhead. People looked up thinking it was another alien patrol. But what they saw was different. The ships above were darker, stronger, and their lights burned blue instead of red. A message echoed across the colony's sky. To all humans still enslaved, you are free. Then the bombardment began. The alien overseers ran to their defenses, but it was useless. Every turret, every cannon was destroyed before it could fire. The human fleet targeted only the guard stations and power plants. Precise strikes, surgical and clean. Within minutes, the overseer's entire defense network was gone. From the largest ship in orbit, the TSS Vengeance, a command was sent. Dropships rained down like falling stars, carrying soldiers clad in dark armor marked with the emblem of Earth. They moved fast, freeing human prisoners and rounding up alien officers. The slaves, weak and starved, stared in disbelief. They had heard stories of Earth long ago, but none believed the old tales were true. Now they stood face to face with humans who had returned from the void. Stronger, sharper, colder. One of the freed slaves, a young woman named Mara, looked at a soldier and whispered, "Are you really from Earth?" The soldier removed his helmet. His eyes were calm but filled with fire. "We never left," he said. Across the galaxy, the same story repeated. Human fleets struck old slave worlds, not to conquer but to liberate. They freed their people and erased every trace of those who had once enslaved them. No unnecessary killing, no cruelty, only justice. And wherever they went, they left one message behind. "We remember what you did." The Galactic Union tried to fight back. They launched entire armadas, fleets larger than anything in history. But every battle ended the same way. Union ships vanished before firing a shot. Sensors couldn't track the enemy. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, attacked and disappeared into hyperspace. It wasn't war. It was punishment. Admiral Corinne, desperate for answers, gathered his best officers. "They're not fighting like soldiers," he said. "They're hunting." A frightened commander replied, "Admiral, what do they want?" Corinne stared at the hologram of Earth's broken image and answered quietly, "They want us to feel what they felt." In every communication center across the galaxy, a new signal began to play. It was the same voice from before, strong, human, and full of quiet anger. "This is Earth Command. You broke us. You enslaved us. You thought we would never return. But now we bring balance to the stars. The age of humanity has begun." The message spread faster than light. Across millions of worlds, beings who once called humans weak now watched in silence as the old race of slaves took control of the sky. On the bridge of the TSS Vengeance, Captain Aria Vale stood before the stars. Her crew waited for her command. "Target the next system," she said softly. Her second officer asked, "Which one, Captain?" She looked out into the endless void, where the galactic capital glowed faintly. Her voice was calm and cold. "Arian Prime, the heart of their empire." The engines roared to life and the fleet turned toward its next destination. The stars bent and twisted as the ships jumped into hyperspace once more. The galaxy had taken Earth's freedom. Now Earth would take the galaxy's peace. And as the last ship vanished into the dark, a whisper echoed across the void. A promise fulfilled after centuries of silence. Humanity is back. The galaxy had always believed that humanity was finished. But that lie burned away the moment the first human fleet struck. The attacks were fast, precise, and silent. A storm of vengeance unleashed after centuries of humiliation. The galaxy, which once laughed at Earth's weakness, now whispered its name in fear. The first retaliation came on a planet called Aurelius Prime, once the largest human slave world. For generations, millions of humans had mined its metal-rich soil under the watch of alien overseers. They lived in darkness, surrounded by pain, forced to work until their bodies failed. But that night, everything changed. It started with a tremor in the sky, a sound no one on Aurelius had heard in centuries. A low hum rolled through the clouds as hundreds of small lights appeared above the atmosphere. The overseers panicked, scrambling to their stations, but the humans stopped working. They stared up, eyes wide with hope and disbelief. The stars seemed to move, shifting like waves. Then the lights grew larger. Ships, dark, massive, and silent, descended from the sky. Their hulls shimmered with the symbol of Earth. Every human who saw it felt their heart stop. For the first time in generations, they saw their home again, not as a word, but as power. The alien guards shouted orders, firing their weapons into the air. But before their bolts could reach the sky, the human fleet responded. Beams of blue light tore through the atmosphere, cutting down every defense tower in seconds. Explosions lit the night like a second sunrise. From the lead ship, the TSS Vengeance, came the order that would be remembered for centuries. Operation Homefire is live. Free them all. Drop pods rained down, striking the planet like thunder. From each one emerged armored soldiers, human warriors in black exosuits, their faces hidden behind glowing visors. They moved with precision and purpose, cutting through alien resistance without hesitation. Every motion spoke of training, anger, and control. Inside the mines, humans huddled together, hearing the explosions above. A little girl clutched her mother's arm. "Are we going to die?" she whispered. Her mother didn't answer, but then the steel door burst open. Smoke filled the tunnels, and out of it stepped one of the soldiers. He looked at them, scanning their faces. Then he spoke, his voice steady and calm. "You're free now. The chains are broken." The stars seemed to move, shifting like waves. Then the lights grew larger. Ships, dark, massive, and silent, descended from the sky. Their hulls shimmered with the symbol of Earth. Every human who saw it felt their heart stop. For the first time in generations, they saw their home again, not as a word, but as power. Arya stood at the viewport, her hand resting against the glass. "Home," she whispered again, her voice shaking. The ship descended through the atmosphere, past clouds glowing orange with sunset. Cities stretched below and rebuilt, vibrant, full of life. Humanity had not just survived. It had evolved. As the Vengeance landed on the restored grounds of New Geneva Spaceport, a crowd waited. Veterans, civilians, children waving flags. The moment Arya stepped out, the noise began. Cheers, tears, the sound of thousands calling one word again and again. Humanity. Humanity. She smiled for the first time in years. That night, a quiet ceremony was held under the stars. The leaders of the new accord gathered. No thrones, no crowns, only a circle of people standing as equals. Arya stepped forward and placed her hand on the center table. "We cannot change the past," she said simply, "but we can build a future where no one suffers as we did." Humanity's strength was never in power, it was in unity. And now the galaxy will share that strength. Her words were simple, but they carried through the night, echoing across the stars. Far beyond, on the edge of the galaxy, the ruins of the old Union still floated in darkness, but among the wreckage, small lights began to glow. New ships, new colonies, new beginnings. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. And somewhere in the silence of deep space, an ancient recording played, a human voice from centuries ago, the last message from the old Earth. We are not just survivors. We are builders. We are dreamers. We are humanity. The stars shimmered as if answering, and as the fleet orbited the world that started it all, the story of humanity, once broken, now reborn, began a new chapter, not the reckoning but the renewal. The officer saluted. Engines hummed. The stars ahead began to twist as hyperspace formed once more. The galaxy had ruled humanity through fear for centuries. But now that fear had changed direction. The Galactic Union's time was over. The humans were coming, not as slaves, not as victims, but as the storm that ends all empires. And across the stars, every world waited in silence for what would come next. The reckoning. The human fleet drifted at the edge of the Aryan system like a storm waiting to strike. Hundreds of ships hung in formation, black silhouettes against the burning light of the twin suns. Each vessel carried the mark of Earth, a glowing blue insignia that pulsed like a heartbeat across the void. On the command deck of the TSS Vengeance, Captain Arya Vale stood silent. Her crew waited for her order, the air heavy with tension. The moment they had trained for, the moment promised by generations, had finally come. The Galactic Union's capital lay before them, shining like a jewel of arrogance. "Fleet status?" she asked quietly. "All ships ready, Captain," her second officer replied. "Weapons charged. Shields at full. No resistance detected yet." "Good," Arya said. "They know we're here." Across the system, the Union's defense fleets were in chaos. Their admirals screamed orders that no one followed. Entire battalions had already deserted. Civilian ships tried to flee the capital, clogging the space lanes. The once mighty Galactic Union, the force that had conquered hundreds of worlds, was breaking apart under the weight of its own fear. In the Capitol Tower, High Chancellor Thamir stood before a massive window overlooking the city. Sirens wailed below. She watched the panic spreading like fire. Her advisor ran in, pale and shaking. "They've entered the system. Thousands of ships. We're detecting human energy signatures across the outer planets." Thamir whispered, "So it's true. They came back." She looked down at her trembling hands. Once, she had signed the decree that began humanity's enslavement. At the time, it seemed like strength, an act to secure the Union's dominance. But now she saw it for what it was, the spark that lit the fire that would consume them all. Back aboard the Vengeance, the human fleet began its final approach. The engines roared with power, shaking space itself. "Open transmission," Arya ordered. A voice officer nodded, and the signal spread across every channel, every world, every ship in the Arion system. The holographic image of Captain Vale appeared before the frightened eyes of the galaxy. Her voice was calm, steady, filled with a quiet fire. "This is Captain Arya Vale of the Terran Starfleet. For centuries, humanity suffered under your rule. You broke our world, stole our children, and silenced our skies. But we did not die. We learned, we built, we evolved." She paused, her eyes sharp as steel. "Now the age of submission ends. This is not revenge. This is justice. The galaxy will remember this day, not as humanity's return, but as the day freedom was restored." The transmission ended then. The stars moved. The human fleet descended upon the capital like falling meteors. Thousands of beams of blue light cut through the darkness, striking the Union's defense ships. Alien vessels exploded in waves of color, red, gold, and violet, as the sky itself seemed to burn. For every alien missile, 10 human counterstrikes followed. The battle was not equal, it was absolute. On the surface, chaos ruled the city. Civilians ran through glowing streets as debris rained from the heavens. The skies turned white from the energy blasts above. In the council chambers, Thamir stood alone. The room trembled as explosions echoed through the sky. She activated the planetary broadcast and faced the camera one last time. "To humanity," she began, her voice trembling. "We wronged you. We enslaved you. And now you bring our end. But know this, we see you now, as we should have from the beginning. Not as slaves, but as gods." The signal cut as the building shook and collapsed. In orbit, Arya watched the capital burn. Her eyes reflected the fire below. Around her, the crew stood in silence. No cheers, no celebration. Only awe. Her second officer spoke softly. "It's over, Captain." Arya didn't answer. She looked at the glowing planet and finally said, "No, this is only the beginning." He frowned. "The beginning?" She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "We came to end our slavery. Now we must decide what kind of future we build. Power can destroy, but it can also protect. Humanity cannot become what we fought against." The bridge fell silent. Her words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. Hours later, the human fleet spread across the ruins of the Galactic Union. Thousands of enslaved species sent messages, not of fear, but of hope. On 1,000 worlds, chains were broken. Flags bearing Earth's mark were raised, not as symbols of conquest, but as promises of unity. In the void of space, the last transmission of the day echoed across the stars. A child's voice, who was the same one Arya had heard before, spoke softly. "Welcome back, Earth." Arya closed her eyes, listening to the silence that followed. The stars outside were quiet, peaceful for the first time in centuries. She turned toward the viewport, whispering to herself, "We were broken. We were enslaved. But we rose again. Humanity has returned, and this time, we stay free." The TSS Vengeance turned slowly, engines burning bright blue as it led the fleet into the unknown. Behind them, the galaxy changed forever. For the first time in history, the universe belonged not to empires, not to conquerors, but to the children of Earth. And so ended the age of the Galactic Union, and so began the age of humanity. The war was over, but the echoes of it still traveled through the stars. Worlds that once bowed before the Galactic Union now stood silent beneath strange skies. Burned cities, drifting wrecks, and broken empires, reminders of an age built on arrogance and cruelty. And yet, from the ruins, life began to move again. On the surface of Arian Prime, the fires had faded. The once golden towers of the capital were now blackened monuments to pride and downfall. Alien survivors walked through the shattered streets, helping one another, speaking in quiet tones. Above them, the human fleet floated like sentinels, not conquerors but guardians. Captain Arya Vale stood on a landing platform overlooking the city. The wind carried the scent of ash and rain. She had seen countless battles, but this silence, the strange, heavy calm, felt different. Her second officer approached. "Reconstruction teams are landing across the city," he said softly. "The remaining Union citizens are cooperating. They're Grateful, Captain. Arya nodded but said nothing. Her gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where the rising sun touched the broken skyline. He hesitated before speaking again. Command wants to know what's next for us. The Reckoners. The fleet. What do we do now? Arya turned to face him. We do what they never could, she said. We build. Far above the planet, the Terran Fleet Command transmitted new orders. A council was forming, not of rulers or generals, but of representatives from every freed world. For the first time in galactic history, voices from hundreds of species would speak as equals. They called it the Accord of Dawn, a promise that no species would ever again live in chains. Messages flooded through the communication networks. On dozens of worlds, old slave camps were torn down and rebuilt into schools, hospitals, and homes. Human engineers and alien scientists worked side by side. Together they repaired what the Union had destroyed. But peace was not easy. There were still planets loyal to the old Union, warlords clinging to power, pirates rising from chaos. The galaxy was wounded, and wounds take time to heal. The humans knew this. They had been broken once too. They understood how long recovery could take. Back on Arian Prime, Arya walked through the ruins of the former council hall, the same place where the Union had once ordered Earth's enslavement. Now sunlight streamed through the broken ceiling, and vines crept across the shattered marble floor. She stopped beside a cracked pillar engraved with the Union's emblem, a symbol of dominance and pride. Slowly she reached out and placed a small metal disc over it. The emblem of Earth. The blue light of the Earthmark glowed softly, merging with the stone, a symbol of the past meeting the future. Her communicator beeped. "Captain," said her communications officer, "you have an incoming transmission and priority 1. It's from Earth." Arya's expression softened. "Put it through." A holographic image appeared before her, Admiral Chen, commander of the Terran Defense Council. His voice was steady, filled with pride. "Captain Vale, the fleet's work is done. You've restored more than freedom. You've restored hope. It's time to come home." Arya looked at the sun above the city and then back at the Admiral. "Home," she whispered. "It's been so long." He smiled faintly. "And it's waiting for you." Later that day, the TSS Vengeance lifted from the surface. Its engines roared, scattering dust and light as it ascended through the clouds. One by one, the ships of the Terran fleet followed, rising toward the stars that had once felt unreachable. From the surface, thousands watched. Humans, aliens, soldiers, children. For many, it was the first time they looked at a fleet and didn't feel fear. The ships vanished into the sky, leaving behind trails of blue light like shooting stars. Days later, the fleet entered the Sol system. The sun, warm and golden, filled the view screens. The planets glimmered like jewels, and at the center of it all hung Earth, blue, bright, alive. The crew stared in silence. Some wept, others smiled. Every scar, every battle, every loss, it had all led to this moment. The alien guards shouted orders, firing their weapons into the air. But before their bolts could reach the sky, the human fleet responded. Beams of blue light tore through the atmosphere, cutting down every defense tower in seconds. Explosions lit the night like a second sunrise. From the lead ship, the TSS Vengeance, came the order that would be remembered for centuries. Operation Homefire is live. Free them all. Drop pods rained down, striking the planet like thunder. From each one emerged armored soldiers. Human warriors in black exosuits, their faces hidden behind glowing visors. They moved with precision and purpose, cutting through alien resistance without hesitation. Every motion spoke of training, anger, and control. Inside the mines, humans huddled together, hearing the explosions above. A little girl clutched her mother's arm. "Are we going to die?" she whispered. Her mother didn't answer. But then the steel door burst open. Smoke filled the tunnels, and out of it stepped one of the soldiers. He looked at them, scanning their faces. Then he spoke, his voice steady and calm. "You're free now. The chains are broken." The mother fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe it. For so long, the word freedom had meant nothing. Now it was real. Outside, chaos filled the skies. The alien fleet arrived too late. Human warships surrounded them, striking with weapons the Union had never seen before. Beams of light curved through space, guided by invisible fields. Alien cruisers exploded one after another. Not a single human ship was lost. Admiral Corinne, watching the battle reports from the galactic capital, couldn't believe what he saw. "They're not just fighting us," he said softly. "They're teaching us fear." On Aurelis Prime, the war ended within hours. The last alien general tried to surrender, broadcasting a desperate plea. "We surrender. Please spare us." But the human fleet didn't answer. Instead, they transmitted a single image: the ruins of old Earth, the burning cities, the broken towers, a reminder of what the galaxy had done. Then the broadcast ended. When the smoke cleared, Aurelis Prime belonged to humanity again. The surviving slaves stood under the open sky, watching as human soldiers planted a flag in the dirt, a blue sphere crossed by a single line. The symbol of Earth. A soldier raised his hand and activated a beacon. The voice of Captain Aria Vale echoed across every speaker, every communicator, every ear on the planet. Aurelis is free. Humanity is rising. This is not war. This is justice, cheers erupted from the crowd. For the first time in centuries, humans shouted not in pain but in pride. But behind the celebration, a darker plan was already forming. Humanity's high command aboard the Vengeance watched as data poured in. Hundreds of old slave worlds were still active. Billions of humans remained in chains. Captain Aria stood in the command chamber, her expression calm. "They wanted us broken," she said. "Now we'll break their empire." Her second officer nodded. "What's our next target?" "Every planet that once carried our blood," she replied. Far across the galaxy, panic spread like wildfire. The Galactic Union's broadcasts were filled with emergency warnings. Fleets were recalled, colonies fortified, but it didn't matter. Wherever humanity went, the same thing happened: swift destruction followed by silence. The aliens began to see a pattern. The attacks weren't random. The humans were not conquering territory. They were erasing pain. Every strike freed a colony that had once been theirs. Every victory carried a message. We remember. On Orion Prime, the Union leaders gathered again. Some demanded total war. Others begged for peace. But one thing united them all: fear. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy no longer felt safe. A transmission arrived suddenly, cutting through all channels. The image was static, but a figure stood in the center, a human woman in a dark uniform. Her eyes were cold, her voice clear. "We do not seek peace. We seek balance. You took our freedom. Now you will understand what that means." The message ended with the same symbol glowing in blue: the mark of Earth. And on Aurelis Prime, as the freed humans built fires and looked toward the stars, one old man raised his hand and whispered, "They came back for us." Above him, the fleet began to move again, engines lighting up like a second dawn. The ships turned one by one toward the heart of the galaxy. The reckoning had only just begun. The news of Aurelis Prime's liberation spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, the once mighty empires trembled. The Galactic Union, which had ruled for centuries without question, now faced the one thing it had never expected: fear. Not from another alien race or internal rebellion, but from the ghosts of humanity, the very species it had broken long ago. Every day brought new reports: outposts gone, fleets missing, colonies silent. In every location, the same symbol appeared: the mark of Earth, glowing faintly in the ruins. No messages, no demands, only silence and destruction that seemed almost surgical. On the capital world, Arian Prime, the council chambers that once rang with arrogance now echoed with panic. Leaders of 100 species filled the vast hall, shouting over each other. "They're unstoppable," cried the Vraxian representative. "Our fleets can't even find them before they strike." "They were slaves," hissed another alien, his scales trembling. "How did they build this kind of power? Who helped them?" No one had answers. At the center of the room sat High Chancellor Thamir, her hands trembling slightly as she watched the holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the fallen worlds. They were spreading like a storm across the Union's borders. Aurelis, Krell, Thandros, every planet that once held human slaves had gone silent. She turned to Admiral Corin, standing beside her. His uniform was perfect, but his eyes were hollow. "You've seen them, Admiral," she said softly. "Tell us the truth. Can we stop them?" Corin hesitated. "No," he said at last. "We can't even find them. Their ships move faster than ours. Their weapons, they don't follow our physics. It's like fighting shadows. The chamber went silent. No one breathed. Corin stepped forward and placed a small device on the table. The projector came to life, showing the last recording from one of their lost fleets. The screen flickered with static. Then came the image of a vast human warship emerging from hyperspace. It was enormous, black as death, covered in glowing blue veins of light. A voice came through the static. Cold, calm, human. You enslaved us. You burned our home. You thought we'd never return. Now you'll understand what fear truly means. The image ended as the alien fleet exploded in silence. The council chamber broke into chaos. Some screamed for peace, others for total war. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. There was no negotiation left. Humanity wasn't fighting for power. They were delivering judgment. Far away, aboard the flagship TSS Vengeance, Captain Arya Vale stood at the center of the command deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her as data filled the screens around her. Each dot represented a planet once used by the Union to enslave humans. Each one was now a target. Her second officer approached quietly. Reports from Morellis, Captain. The freed colonies are rebuilding. They're calling the fleet the Reckoners. Arya gave a small nod. Good. Let them remember what we are. He hesitated. Some say we should open talks with the Union, maybe show mercy. She turned to him slowly. Mercy? Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. Did they show mercy when they took our children? When they burned our world? No. Mercy ended the day they invaded Earth. He said nothing more. On Orion Prime, panic had turned to terror. Entire cities built in shining gold now echoed with sirens. Refugee ships crowded the skies, trying to escape the capital system before the human fleet arrived. Broadcasts filled the air, desperate messages from alien citizens begging for safety, for forgiveness, for salvation, and then the transmissions began again. Every screen, every comm tower, every frequency was hijacked at once. Static filled the air, and then the symbol appeared, the circle with a single line. Earth's mark. A voice followed, smooth and steady. This is not war. This is balance. The galaxy enslaved us. The galaxy will now learn freedom's price. The feed cut off. Within hours, half the Union's military had deserted. Soldiers refused to fight. Whole planets declared neutrality, terrified that defending the Union would bring the humans' wrath upon them. The galaxy's unity, the pride that had once kept billions of species together, collapsed overnight. Admiral Corin stood in his private quarters, staring out at the stars. He remembered the old history records, the humans' defiance, their creativity, their fire. He had always admired them, even as the Union broke them. Now he saw that same fire burning brighter than ever. He whispered to himself, "We made them monsters, and now they've come to remind us why we feared them." On the TSS Vengeance, the fleet prepared for its next move. Dozens of smaller ships moved into formation, each one carrying soldiers ready to strike. The target was Arian Prime, the capital of the Galactic Union. Captain Arya looked out over the stars, her expression unreadable. Around her, the crew worked in silence. They didn't need speeches. Every man and woman aboard knew why they were here. A transmission appeared on her screen, from one of the newly freed colonies. It was a simple message from a child. "Thank you for coming back for us." For a brief moment, Arya's cold mask softened. Then she turned toward the viewport, her voice low and determined. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "It's time to finish this."